Chant and dance as much as possible in this human form of life.
Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadhamyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Pada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kantha Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanustute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadhi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadbhaktaya Namo Namaha Anandalilamaya Vigrahaya Hemavadivya Chavisundaraya Tasmai Mahaprema Rasapradaya Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste. Hare Krishna. Before I begin, I want to express my heartfelt gratitude at the lotus feet of Abhay Charana Arvinda, Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, because of whose endeavor we have got the treasure of Ram Katha in our life. So I want to express my gratitude at the lotus feet of Prabhupada for Prabhu Sri Ram, beautiful pastimes of Lakshman and Maya Sita, and how Sri Ram very bravely fought the demon Ravana and got back Maya Sita back to Ayodhya. So I want to express my gratitude to all the assembled devotees here. Thank you so much for being on the call. Had it not been for you all, probably I'll not be here speaking about the glories of Sri Ram. So thank you, and please accept my very humble obeisances. Vanchakal patarobhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. As we know that from a few days from now, we will be celebrating the most auspicious appearance day of Prabhu Sri Ram. And Ram Navami is very powerful. A few days back, when we were discussing about the glories of Sripad Aindra Prabhu, that day we made this point that Aindra Prabhu many times would make this beautiful realization that the half-day fast on the day of Ram Navami is more powerful than 1,000 Nirjala Ekadashis put together. So if someone does 1,000 Nirjala Ekadashis, which means Pandav Nirjala Ekadashi, if someone does 1,000 Nirjala Ekadashis, the benefit that he will get, that is no way in comparison to one day, that is half day of fast of Ram Navami. So that half day of fast is more powerful than 1,000 Nirjala Ekadashis put together. So that would be my only humble request, that for the coming Ram Navami that we are celebrating on the 21st, if we can fast half day till the time that is mentioned and chant and hear on that day, then we can invoke the mercy and the blessings of Sri Ram and his brother Lakshman, along with Maya Sita and Hanumanji. So we find in this beautiful narration of Ramayana by Valmiki, there are so many beautiful aspects that come in, but in our limited time, we'll not be able to touch the whole of Ramayana. So we'll be just taking one portion of it. We see in Ramayana, there are two personalities by the name Sugriva and Vali. And we know Vali and Sugriv both were brothers. Vali was the older brother, and naturally Sugriv was the younger brother. And both being monkeys were very powerful, but Vali in particular was extraordinarily powerful. He was very powerful. Now, just to give some idea of the power of Vali, Ravana, who is also equally powerful, it is described Ravana had the power of 10,000 elephants. So we can imagine how powerful is that. When we see one elephant, that itself is very powerful in nature. But 10,000 elephants coming together, that is a lot of power. And Ravana was so powerful that he had the power of 10,000 elephants. And in Ravana's palace, there were different things that he had stolen. He would go to different places, and whatever he liked, he would just steal. And no one could do anything because Ravana was that powerful. They knew that there was no point fighting with Ravana because he would end up defeating them. So much so that Ravan did not even leave Kubera. Kubera is the treasurer of the demigods. All the wealth that is there, it is Kubera who manages. So Kubera is very wealthy. And naturally, Kubera had something called as the Pushpak Viman, the carrier in which he would fly to different places. When Ravana met Kubera, he got so enamored, he got so attracted by the Pushpak Viman that he even stole Kubera's Pushpak Viman. And Kubera, who was equally powerful, couldn't do anything because Ravana was a few notches higher in power. So that was Ravana, as far as power is concerned. When that Ravana, he came to meet Vali. Vali at that time was doing Gayatri. So you see, those days, even the monkeys, even though they were monkeys, they were still doing Gayatri. What to speak of humans? The present day, we find even the humans don't do Gayatri. But during those days, even the monkeys, after having a monkey body, they would still do Gayatri. They would still chant the names of God. So Vali, at one time, he was chanting his Gayatri. And Ravana decided to attack Vali. And this was a big blunder. This was a big mistake because Ravana had no idea as to how powerful Vali can be. So he decided to attack Vali from behind. So he came from behind in the mood of attacking Vali, but Vali was so powerful that when he was doing his Gayatri, through his tail, because he was a monkey, through his tail, he wrapped up Ravana. And he wrapped up Ravana in his tail. And because he was a monkey, every Gayatri mantra that he would chant, he would jump around different oceans. So he would chant one mantra in one ocean, and next mantra he would jump around to some other ocean, and the next mantra he would jump around to some other ocean. So when Ravana attacked from behind, Vali did not even look behind. Just by his tail, he wrapped up Ravana. And Ravana hanging in the tail of Vali. Vali was jumping from one ocean to another, one ocean to another, another ocean to another. So when Ravana, he saw this, he looked at Vali and said, "What is this? At least show some respect. I am the king of Lanka. At least show some respect. Hold me in your hand. By holding me in your tail, you're disrespecting me. What will people think?" So when Vali heard this, he held Ravana in his hand. And just like a mother carries a baby, similarly, Vali just carrying Ravana in his hand, just in one hand, and was jumping from one ocean to another. So then Ravana understood that there is no point fighting Vali because Vali is very powerful. So naturally, what do? When you can't defeat your enemy, you befriend them, you make them your friends. So Ravana, he signed a pact, he signed a friendship deal with Vali because he understood. He told Vali that uh, I, I think there's no point, fighting. Better we can be friends. We'll be good friends, and whenever you want, I will help you. Whenever I want, you should help me. So Vali agreed because Vali also understood that Ravana actually had come in the interest of fighting him, but seeing his own power, he understood there is no point fighting. So then Ravana and Vali, they both signed a friendship pact. So that is how powerful Vali was. He could hold Ravana in his tail. So now Vali and Sugriv, as we mentioned, both were brothers. But Vali, what he ended up doing is he kidnapped the wife of his younger brother Sugriv. And Sugriv couldn't do anything because Vali was very powerful. So he kidnapped the wife of Sugriv. And Sugriv tried every bit possible, but somehow he couldn't get his wife back. He couldn't get his kingdom. Everything was lost. So much so that Vali was chasing Sugriva. He was chasing him from one place to another in order to finish his own brother. And finally, Sugriv, he hid in a mountain called as Martanga Mountains, Martanga Hill. Now this place is special because at Martanga Hill, Martanga Rishi was doing his tapasya. He was doing his bhajan. But it so happened that when Vali once was chasing a bull in order to kill that bull, somehow it so happened that few drops of blood from the body of that bull, it fell on the body of Martanga Rishi who was doing tapasya. So when Martanga Rishi saw that few drops of blood from the bull has fallen upon him because of Vali, he cursed Vali. He cursed Vali and said, Vali, because you are trying to kill a demon, you're trying to kill a bull who is innocent, and you're trying to cause harm in my bhajan, I curse you that this hill you can never access this hill. You will be able to go to all places of this world, but you will not be able to access Martanga Hill. It is my curse to you. So because of that, Vali could go to all places, but had no access to Martanga Hill because of the curse of Martanga Rishi. So now Sugriv knew this. So when Vali was chasing Sugriva, Sugriva left all places and straight away went to Martanga Hill because he knew that of all the places, this is that only place where Vali cannot come and Sugriva. So he took refuge. He was hiding there for many years together. When Sri Ram and Lakshman, they saw that Maya Sita got kidnapped, they started traveling through different forests. And eventually, they came and met Sugriva. They met Hanuman, and Hanuman introduced them to Sugriva. So when Ram and Lakshman met Sugriva, they were very happy because Sugriva, he guaranteed that he will help Sri Ram bring Maya Sita back. But there was a beautiful friendship pact that was signed. Ram said, I will help you get your wife back, but in return, you should help me get Maya Sita back. I will help you get your wife back, and similarly, you should help me get Maya Sita back. If you agree to this, I will help you fight Vali. So Sugriv said, sure enough, that's a deal. I will definitely help you get Maya Sita back. So this friendship pact was signed between Prabhu Sri Ram and Sugriva. And now Sri Ram said, you go outside the cave of Vali and challenge him for a fight. Sugriva said, my dear Lord, what are you saying? You know Vali is so powerful. How can I go outside his cave and challenge him for a fight? Sri Ram said, don't worry, I am hiding behind a tree. I will protect you. So Sugriva, he trusted Sri Ram and he went outside the cave of Vali and he started calling Vali, Vali, come out. I want to fight. I'm here to fight a battle with you. Please come out. Today I'm going to crush you and powder you into pieces. So Vali, please come out. Now, Sugriva was challenging Vali. He knew Vali was very powerful, but he trusted that Prabhu Sri Ram is there to protect him. So when Vali heard this, Wali thought to himself when he told his wife, seems like this guy has gone crazy. He is coming outside my cave and challenging me. Seems like he has gone mad. So Wali came outside and Sugriva was all set to fight Wali. So when Wali came out, he saw Sugriva this way. Wali just punched Sugriva, black and blue. He was punching, and Sugriva was not able to do anything. And behind the tree, when Ram was seeing this, Ram kept his bow and arrow to the side and Ram was clapping. He was clapping. And when Sugriva was punched this way, Sugriva came back to Prabhu Sri Ram and said, "My dear Lord, what is this? You promised that you will protect me in the fight with Wali, but you do not protect me." So when Sugriva came back this way, Sri Ram said, "I thought you are fighting. I thought you are punching Wali. Both of you all look so alike. Both of you all are monkeys and both of you all almost have the same face. So I thought you are punching Wali, and that's the reason I kept my bow and arrow to the side and I was clapping." At that time, Sugriva said, "My dear Lord, you are clapping here, and that is the reason he was clapping on my face. You were keeping your bow and arrow to the side and clapping, and he was clapping on my face, and that's the reason my face is black and blue." Sugriva went like a monkey, but he came back like Jagannath. His eyes were blackish and blue, completely punched by the fist of Wali. So when Ram saw this, Ram understood that, oh, actually Sugriva was getting punched by Wali. So now Ram, he proposed, he gave an idea. He said, maybe we can do one thing. He called Lakshman and he said, "Lakshman, can you please garland Sugriva so that I understand? Now when Sugriva goes to battle Wali, I will understand that the person who is wearing a garland, he is Sugriv, and the person who is not wearing a garland, he is Wali." So Lakshman came and he garlanded Sugriva. And now when Sugriva went to fight Wali, he again went outside and challenged. His face was already blue and black. He went and challenged Wali. And Wali thought to himself, what has happened to him? Why is he challenging me? I just punched him blue, left, right, center, and he's still coming. He still has the audacity to come and challenge me. So Wali again came outside. But this time when Wali came out, Sri Ram was standing behind that Wali. The moment Wali came outside, Sri Ram took his arrow and he shot the arrow straight at Wali. And this arrow of Prabhu Sri Ram, it went straight inside the chest of Wali. And Wali, just by that one arrow, fell to the ground. That Wali who was so powerful, who could hold Ravana in his tail, just by one arrow of Prabhu Sri Ram, he fell to the ground. So we can imagine that Wali was so powerful that by his tail itself, he could hold Ravana, and that Wali got defeated just by one arrow of Ram. So we can imagine when Ram and Ravana come together, there is no question of Ravana defeating Ram. Ram was so powerful. So just that one arrow pierced the chest of Wali, and Wali fell to the ground. And when Wali fell to the ground, Sri Ram came in front of Wali. And Wali removed the arrow, and the arrow had a beautiful signature. It read Dasharath Nandan Sri Ram. So even the arrow was customized. Sri Ram had his own arrow. So it read Dasharath Nandan Sri Ram. So Wali looked at Sri Ram and said, I always knew that you were very powerful, but I never knew that you were a coward. If you were really so powerful, why did you hide behind a tree and shoot me? If you would have come in front of me, then we would have had a proper battle. But what is this? Like a coward, you went behind the tree and you shot an arrow. I never knew Dasharath Maharaj's son was such a coward. Why did you do this? And harm did I do to you? I never did any wrong to you. Why did you shoot an arrow at me? So Sri Ram, when he was standing in front of Wali, he said, Oh Wali, you did something wrong. You kidnapped the wife of your own brother. And this is against dharma. This is against ethics. This is against principles. And I, being Maryada Purushottam, I am here to establish Maryada. That is the reason I had to shoot an arrow and kill you. So, if you think you have not done anything wrong to me, you have caused harm to Sugriv. And I, being the assistant of the king, I am here to kill you because you have broken principles. You have gone against, you have gone viruddha of dharma, dharma viruddha. You have broken the principles of dharma. And I, being the assistant of the king, I have come here to kill you. So at that time, when Vali hears this, Vali puts his trump card and Vali says, my dear Lord, dharma and ethics and etiquettes, these are meant for human beings. But I'm a monkey and monkey has no dharma, monkey has no etiquette. So how can you say that I have broken principles? So when Ram hears this, Ram is equally very intelligent. Maryada Purushottam Sri Ramchandra says that if you have kidnapped the wife of Sugriva, and I, being the assistant of the king, I came and I killed you. But if you say that you don't follow dharma because you're a monkey and dharma is not applicable to you, then I, being the hunter, I have come and shot a monkey because you're a monkey and I am the hunter. And the hunter always shoots the arrow from behind the tree. So any which ways, oh Vali, you were destined to kill. So when Vali hears this, Vali becomes very pleased because Sri Ram gives befitting answers to the questions of Vali. Any which ways, either as a hunter or as the assistant of the king, the Supreme Lord, he killed Vali. And this arrow, when it pierced Vali, Vali departed. And as the promise, as Sri Ram had promised Sugriv, he naturally helped Sugriv get back his wife, and he also helped him get back his kingdom. So in this way, Prabhu Sri Ram helped Sugriva get his beautiful wife and his kingdom back. Now this promise was signed, and naturally it was now the time of Sugriva to help Prabhu Sri Ram, and Sugriva did follow his promise of helping Maya Sita come back to Ayodhya. But here there is a very beautiful point that we were making yesterday. For those devotees who were there yesterday, we were making this point as to how Prabhu Sri Ram's Ramayana, the epic Ramayana, was written by Valmiki Rishi. When Valmiki Rishi wrote Ramayana, he had this desire that now it has to be given to someone. Because we see, even when Vyasadeva, he wrote Bhagavatam, he wanted to give Bhagavatam to someone. And that is the reason he gave it to Shukadev Goswami, who spoke to Parikshit Maharaj, which naturally Suta Goswami heard, and he gave it to the sages of Naimisharanya. And that's how Bhagavatam spread. So similarly, Valmiki wanted to give Ramayana to someone so that that person can go around and spread the glories of Prabhu Sri Ram. So in those days, there was no need of even writing because people were Shrutidhar. Just by hearing, they could remember everything. We find in the present day, when we hear a katha, by the time it's 24 hours, the complete katha gets evaporated. Our memory is so volatile that the moment class is done, everything gets evaporated. And that is the reason it is always said that in this age, we cannot remember it in our mastak. That's why we should always write it in our pustak. If we have written the katha notes in our pustak, that is the book, then it will always be there in our mastak. That is our intelligence. We will always remember the katha. So it is very important whenever we hear, we should always write it down so we never forget. But now we are talking about Treta Yuga, when Sri Ram was there. So Valmiki, he composed the Ramayana, and now he had to give it to someone. And in his ashram were very beautiful, very charismatic, very dynamic, very effulgent, very tejasvi, very powerful, and very obedient two young boys by the name Lava and Kusha. So Valmiki decided to give this Ramayana to Lava and Kusha, and every day he would speak this Ramayana to both of them. And Lava and Kusha would hear this Ramayana with so much excitement. But the interesting thing is, Lava and Kusha had no idea that the hero about whom they're hearing, that is Sri Ram, is their own father. Lava and Kusha were hearing as third person. They absolutely had no idea that the hero of the whole of Ramayana is their own father, Sri Ram. Why? How did Lava and Kusha had no idea? Because after Prabhu Sri Ram came back to Ayodhya, we know there is this story of Agni Pariksha, and then finally Maya Sita had to leave Ayodhya. And when she left Ayodhya, she was living in the ashram of Valmiki Rishi. When she was living in the ashram of Valmiki Rishi away from Prabhu Sri Ram, that is when she gave birth to Lava and Kusha. So when Lava and Kusha appeared in this world, Sri Ram was not there around. So naturally, they had no idea that Sri Ram was their father. And Maya Sita also did not say anything. So when they were hearing Ramayana from Valmiki, they had absolutely no idea. They were hearing it as third person. And they were so enamored by how powerful Sri Ram was, how valiantly he fought Ravana, how he fought Indrajit, and how he fought Kumbhakarna. So they were taking inspiration from Prabhu Sri Ram, not knowing that that personality is their own father. So when Valmiki, he spoke Ramayana to Lava and Kusha, he gave them the instruction that now you go around and every town and village, wherever you find people, just speak about Prabhu Sri Ram. So Lava and Kusha agreed. And wherever they went, they would just sing the glories of Sri Ram. They had memorized all the verses, and wherever they went, they would just sing the verses, sing the verses. And people would get so attracted by the pastimes of Sri Ram. This is very important, dear devotees, that by hearting and memorizing verses, this is an important limb of bhakti. Sometimes we tend to neglect it, but this is very important. We can see from the life of Lava and Kusha that they by hearted the whole of Ramayana, and they were going around and giving it to everyone. In fact, in the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, at one place in one of the purports, Srila Prabhupada, he writes that the best way to remember Shastra is by repeating them. Prabhupada writes this. He says the best way to remember any Shastra is by constantly repeating them again and again and again and again. And in Shastra, we find there are so many verses that are meant for memorization. We have Bhishma Stuti, we have Prahlad Stuti, we have Dhruva Stuti, we have Gajendra Stuti, we have the prayers of Kuvera, Manigriva and Nala Kuvera. We have the prayers that the demigods offered to Krishna when Krishna was there in the womb of Maya Devaki. We have Rudra Geet, we have Gopi Geet, we have Yugal Geet, we have Pranay Geet, we have Brahmar Geet. So many verses, so many shlokas are there, so many Geets are there. Why? So that we by heart and memorize them and chant them constantly. Because the more we chant verses, the more we remember the Supreme Lord. And these verses, they are a packet of explosion. They are a packet of happiness. When we chant these verses, there is an explosion of happiness in our heart. When we constantly keep by-hearting and keep chanting these verses, like Lava and Kusha. So Prabhupada is making this point in the first canto that the best way to remember Shastra is by repeating them again and again. When we chant verses like Gajendra Stuti, even during the time of obstacle, we will only chant Gajendra Stuti. Why? Because when Gajendra was in calamity, when Gajendra was in an obstacle, he chanted these prayers. So similarly, when we by heart these prayers and constantly keep chanting, even when obstacles rise in our heart, instead of going around and telling everyone, we will naturally take shelter of Gajendra Stuti. We will take shelter of the prayers of Dhruva. We will take shelter of the prayers of Bhishma. So these prayers are very important. Time and again, Prabhupada would always emphasize on by hearting and chanting these verses. Srila Prabhupada was, as we know, once Srila Prabhupada was in New Vrindavan. This is a very famous story. Srila Prabhupada was once in New Vrindavan, and it was the day of Janmashtami. So the whole day of Janmashtami was done, and at night 12 o'clock, Srila Prabhupada was in his room, and there were many sannyasis who were sitting. And Prabhupada said, let us read the Krishna book. So the disciples, they agreed. They were fasting all day, but then they agreed. And they read the whole first chapter of the Krishna book. and said, thus ends the Bhakti Vedanta purport to the first chapter of the Krishna book. And they thought, okay, now it is done. Now it is time for Prasad. Prabhupada said, next chapter. So they started reading the next chapter. And the second chapter was done. And they said, now ends the purport to the, now ends the Bhakti Vedanta purport to the second chapter. Prabhupada said, next chapter. Now, when Prabhupada said the next chapter, at this time, all the sannyasis, their dandas were literally falling because they were so sleepy and they were so hungry that the dandas were falling here and there. And here was Prabhupada closing his eyes and was relishing Krishna book. So when Prabhupada opened his eyes, he saw all the dandas were falling here and there, and the sannyasis were literally to the ground because they were so sleepy. So Prabhupada saw this scene and Prabhupada said, seems like everyone is sleepy. So we can pause from here and we can take some prasad. And when Prabhupada said that, there was the loudest Hari Bol in that room. They said, Jai Prabhupada, because it was time for prasad. But the point here is this was the enthusiasm of Srila Prabhupada. He could go on hearing and hearing and hearing about the pastimes of the Supreme Lord. So this is the trick that Prabhupada teaches us. If we, at the time of obstacle, at the time of calamity, if we want to remember Krishna, then we have to always keep hearing and always keep chanting these verses like Lava and Kusha did, like Prabhupada did. At another instance, Shrutakirti Prabhu, who was the personal servant of Srila Prabhupada, Shrutakirti Prabhu was once massaging Prabhupada. And when he was massaging Prabhupada, he was also reading the Srimad Bhagavatam. And Prabhupada, his eyes were closed. And Shrutakirti Prabhu was massaging. And at one point, he read a verse and he coughed. He read 2 lines of the verse and he coughed. And when he coughed, Prabhupada finished the last 2 lines of that verse. Prabhupada's eyes was closed, but he finished the last 2 lines of the verse. So when Shrutakirti Prabhu saw this, he was amazed. He turned towards Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, I thought you were sleeping. Your eyes were closed. So I thought you were sleeping. And Prabhupada replied by saying, sleeping? Only a fool will be sleeping when the pastimes of the Supreme Lord are described. Only someone who is not serious about bhakti, only that person will be sleeping when these beautiful verses are chanted, when these beautiful pastimes are narrated. So Prabhupada time and again, even through his personal life, was demonstrating this point that these verses are so powerful that they can help us make rapid advancement on this path of Krishna Bhakti. And time and again, Prabhupada would make this point. Chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is very important, no doubt. But to support the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, we need stuti. We need different stutis like Bhishma Stuti, Gajendra Stuti, Dhruva Stuti, etc. We need these verses. And we also need Vaishnava bhajans. Bhajans by Narottam Das Thakur, bhajans by Bhakti Vinod Thakur. These verses and these bhajans are very important. We should never neglect them. When we chant Vaishnava bhajans, that of Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Amar Jivan Sada Paperata Nahika Punyera Lesh. When we chant these verses, where Bhakti Vinod Thakur is saying that my life is filled with sin and there is no good quality, no purity in my life. There is no question of being proud. There is no question of being proud in our life when we chant these beautiful bhajans. So it is very important. The lesson that we can take from Lava and Kusha here is, apart from the holy name, we have to also chant verses. And we have to also chant Vaishnava bhajans. We can pick any set of verses and chant them for like 1 or 2 weeks till the time it is by-hearted. And then when we come in front of Radha Neela Madhav, as an offering, we can chant it to them. That is the perfection of taking darshan of the deities. When we chant verses in their glorification, that is perfection. So this is the important lesson that we can take from the life of Lava and Kusha. Chanting verses and reciting beautiful bhajans, in that of Bhakti Vinod Thakur, that of Lochan Das Thakur, that of Narottam Das Thakur, the songs of Saraswati Thakur, the songs of Bhakti Vinod Thakur, and even the songs of Srila Prabhupada. So very important. So in this way, Lava and Kusha were traveling to different places and they were chanting Ramayana, They were chanting the glories of Prabhu Sri Ram. And naturally, this news, it reached Prabhu Sri Ram in Ayodhya. So Ram was very curious. He was thinking to himself, who are these two young boys? Because even Prabhu Sri Ram had no idea that Lava and Kusha were his sons. And Lava and Kusha also had no idea that Prabhu Sri Ram was their husband. So Ram, when he heard this, he was perplexed that who are these two beautiful sons, charismatic, effulgent sons, children who are chanting my glories and are chanting the glories of Dasharath Maharaj. So he sent his ministers and he told his ministers that please call Lava and Kusha. I want to hear the glories of Ayodhya. I want to hear the glories of Dasharath Maharaj from their lips. So these ministers, they went and they asked Lava and Kusha to come to Ayodhya. So when Lava and Kusha came to Ayodhya, this was the first time they came to Ayodhya. There was a grand welcome that both of them had. Both of them were very small. They were only in their about 10 or 12 in age. So very effulgent young boys. So when they came to Ayodhya and Sri Ram, he looked at them and Sri Ram could not take his eyes off Lava and Kusha because they were so effulgent. Valmiki Ramayana describes they were so effulgent. So they came and they beautifully started reciting Ramayana. They described as to how near Sarayu river there was a place by the name Ayodhya, which was ruled by Dasharath Maharaj for about 60,000 years. Now this is interesting. How did Dasharath Maharaj rule for 60,000 years? The point here to be noted and the point here to be understood is this was Treta Yuga, and in Treta Yuga the lifespan was long. In Satya Yuga the lifespan was 1 lakh years. In Treta Yuga 10 got cancelled, so lifespan was 10,000 years, and then it became 1,000 years, and then it became 100 years. But Dasharath Maharaj was so pure and so powerful, and he would always follow his dharma, that Dasharath Maharaj lived for a very long time. So for 60,000 years, he was the king of Ayodhya. And interesting, these names that we find in the scriptures, they're very interesting. He was called as Dasharath. Why Dasharath? Because that personality who was so skilled that he could manage chariots, that is Rath, in all the 10 directions, is called as Dasharath. Dasha means 10 and Rath means chariot. So Dasharath Maharaj was so skilled that he could manage his chariot in all the 10 directions. So he was called as Dasharath. Similarly, Kaikai. Why was she called Kaikai? Because Kaikai came from a place called as Keka Pradesh. Keka Pradesh is the present day Russia. So basically, Dasharath Maharaj had a Russian wife. Dasharath Maharaj had a Russian wife. Because she came from the present day Keka Pradesh, she was called as Kaikai. Now, why is Keka Pradesh called Keka Pradesh? Because it was famous, because there were a lot of peacocks that were found in Keka Pradesh, the present day Russia. And peacocks, they make this sound, Keka, Keka, Keka. Especially you see in Vrindavan, they always make some Keka, Keka. So that place where peacocks were found in abundance was called as Keka Pradesh. And that personality who came from Keka Pradesh was called as Kaikai. So basically Kaikai was Russian and Dasharath Maharaj got married to a Russian wife. He had a Russian wife. Similarly, Mantra. Why was she called Mantra? Because she could churn the mana, the mind of people. Similarly, Kaushalya. She was called as Kaushalya because she was the first queen of Kaushal Pradesh. That is why she was called as Kaushalya. So these names are very interesting. Ayodhya. Why is Ayodhya called Ayodhya? Because Yodha, Yuddha means battle. Yuddha means battle. Ayodhya, oh, that place where there were no battle, no conflicts, no fight is called as Ayodhya. When Dasharath Maharaj was ruling, he was such a brilliant ruler that there were absolutely no fights and no major battles during his time. But actually we find in this world, is it possible to have a place where there is no fights? Is it possible to have a place where there is no conflicts? Is it possible to have a place where there is no anxiety, there is no depression? Not possible. There is probably no place in earth where there is no sorrow, no depression, no anxiety. So how is this place called as Ayodhya? Well, it is actually a paradox. It doesn't mean what the name is. Ayodhya, this name is a paradox. Why? Because that Dasharath Maharaj, who ruled for 60,000 years without any battle, even that Dasharath Maharaj got defeated when he was departing this world. Why? Because when Dasharath Maharaj was departing this world, his own sons in the form of Sri Ram, Sri Lakshman, and Bharat and Shatrughan, they were not present. When Dasharath Maharaj was leaving, his own sons were not present, which means he got defeated at the time of his departure. So this word Ayodhya is actually a paradox, that everyone at the time of death will eventually get defeated. There is no person who will not get defeated. At the time of death, Mrityu sarva haras chaham. The Supreme Lord has death, he snatches away every single thing, whatever we have. So if the whole life we are proud of the fact that we have lived a very nice life and we have everything, it's only a matter of time that the Supreme Lord in the form of death will come and powder us and snatch away everything. So even Dasharath Maharaj, who was the father of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even he at the time of departure got completely defeated. So this word Ayodhya is actually a paradox. We find in this world, dear devotees, that obstacles and calamities are always there. There is no place where there is no obstacles. Many years back, this was a major news in the Times of India. In the year of 2005, opposite to our Radha Gopinath temple in Mumbai, Chapati, opposite to Radha Gopinath Mandir, there was in one building, from one of the floors, there was 3 people, husband, wife, and the child. They committed suicide. They jumped off from the 15th or 16th floor and they gave up their body. And from their pockets, there was a chit that was found. And that chit read that we are fed up with life. We don't want to live anymore. Now, the interesting point here is, from the same house, from the same building, 10 years ago, which means in the year of 1995, there was a double suicide case. A husband and wife had jumped from the same floor, and from their pocket also it read, we are fed up with life. We are fed up with our son-in-law. We are fed up with our daughter-in-law. Now we can imagine if they had a house in Chopati, which is a very posh and a very expensive area, which means they had all the wealth, they had all the luxuries. But somehow, wealth doesn't give us happiness. And this is the best example. It was there as headlines in the Times of India and so many other news. Same house had 5 suicide cases in a span of 10 years. So this is the problem. This is the way human life is. It is so fragile that this bubble of human life can burst and break anytime. At the time of death, everyone eventually gets defeated. Everything is taken away. So even Dasharath Maharaj, at the time of death, at the time of his departure, got defeated because his own sons in the form of Ram, Lakshman, Shatrughan, and Bharat were not present. So in this way, Lava and Kusha, they were beautifully describing all these pastimes. They came and described also about how Sri Ram shot the arrow and killed Vali, and how he helped Sugriva get back his wife, and how eventually Prabhu Sri Ram, he built a setu by the help of Jambavan, by the help of sparrows and squirrels and Hanuman, how they built a Ram setu and they fought demons like Indrajit and Kumbhakarna and Ravana, and how Mother Sita was helped. So in this way, Lava and Kusha were very beautifully describing the whole of Ramayana. And when Ram was hearing the whole narration, Ram's eyes was closed, and Prabhu Sri Ram literally had tears in his eyes. Prabhu Sri Ram was weeping. It was his own pastime, but he had never heard it in such a way. So his eyes was completely moist and he was crying. And he looked at Lakshman and he said, who are they? Who is their father? Who is their mother? Oh Lakshman, can you please go to them and ask them who their parents are? I want to meet their parents. So Lakshman went, and Lakshman, as a matter of donation, he collected a lot of gold, lot of silk cloth, diamonds and rubies and emeralds, and he went to Lava and Kusha, and he gave these diamonds to them and said, we are very happy with the recitation of Ramayana that you did. Can you please accept this? So Lava and Kusha, they responded by saying that we are brahmacharis, and brahmachari has nothing to do with gold. Brahmachari has nothing to do with emeralds and rubies. We have nothing to do with even silk cloth. So we don't want this. If we came here only for the pleasure of Ram, we came here only for the pleasure of Lakshman. We are doing it selflessly. We don't want anything in return. So by saying this, Lava and Kusha, they left, and they again came back to the ashram of Valmiki. And Maya Sita was here. And interestingly, what had happened is when Ram and Lakshman were hearing this narration, and Lava and Kusha were reciting, Lava and Kusha, their eyes fell on a very beautiful golden deity. Now this beautiful golden deity resembled the form of Maya Sita. And Lava and Kusha were thinking to themselves that how is Maya Sita, how is our mother here in Ayodhya? Like, what is the connection? So, of course, they didn't ask Ram and Lakshman, but when they came back to the ashram of Valmiki, where Maya Sita was there, both Lava and Kusha were so happy and excited. They said that, oh mother, do you know, when we went to Ayodhya and when we were reciting the glories of Sri Ram and Dasharath Maharaj, there was a beautiful deity that was kept on the throne just besides Sri Ram. And oh mother, this deity exactly looked like you. How is it that this deity exactly looks like you? Can you explain to me? When Maya Sita heard this, Maya Sita started crying. She started weeping. She thought to herself that even though Prabhu Sri Ram has externally given her up, but still internally the Supreme Lord is still crying and weeping for Maya Sita. So this shows the point, dear devotees, that the Supreme Lord is Maryada Purushottam. That even after he gave up Maya Sita, his heart was still beating. His heart was still yearning for Maya Sita's association. So he was still following Maryada. He was still following the principles. So when Sita Devi heard this from Lava and Kusha, she started crying. Here comes the interesting point, dear devotees. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he takes this story ahead. He takes this narration ahead. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, in the pastimes of Sri Ram, when Sita Devi left, Prabhu Sri Ram made a deity of gold and was worshipping that deity of gold. In the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu got married to Vishnu Priya, and then when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left, Vishnu Priya started worshipping a golden deity of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which is called as Sonara Gauranga. So in Treta Yuga, Maya Sita leaves Sri Ram, and Sri Ram, in the mood of separation, worships Maya Sita's golden deity. And in Kali Yuga, when that same Sri Ram comes as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and that same Maya Sita comes down as Vishnu Priya, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu takes sannyas and leaves. And this time it is Maya Sita in the form of Vishnu Priya who is worshipping a golden deity called as Sonara Gauranga. So we find history repeats itself. This is a beautiful parallel that we find between the pastimes of Sri Ram and the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And this deity is still there in Navadvip Dham, Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes. So in this way, we find that Sri Ram is not different from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Maya Sita is not different from Vishnu Priya Devi. So we should have absolutely no doubt. There should be no tinge of doubt, as Srila Gaur Govinda Maharaj would say. There should be no tinge of doubt in our mind, in our heart, that, oh, whether Sri Ram is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, or is Sri Ram same as Krishna, is Sri Chaitanya same as Krishna, there should be no doubt. Sri Ram, Sri Krishna, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they're all Supreme Personality of Godhead. The only difference is Sri Krishna and Sri Chaitanya, they are Mool Swarup, they are Avatari. while Sri Ram is avatar. Sri Ram is an incarnation. But Gauranga Mahaprabhu and Sri Krishna, they are not an incarnation, but they are Mool Swarup. They are the root. They're called as avatari. So in this way, we find that Mahaprabhu's pastimes and the pastimes of Prabhu Sri Ram have a very beautiful connection. And to wrap up our discussion, Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Navadvip Dham Mahatmya, he says that in the pastimes of the Supreme Lord of Sri Ram, there was a personality by the name Guhaka, Guhak Raj. And that Guhak Raj, he appeared in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes as Sadananda Bhattacharya. So when the Supreme Lord comes down as Sri Chaitanya, it is the same associates who again come down to take the pastimes ahead, to help the Supreme Lord in his pastimes. So Guhak Raj again appears as Sadananda Bhattacharya. Just like we find Hanuman appears as Murari Gupta. We discussed this on the day of Gaura Purnima, the glories of Murari Gupta as to how Hanuman is appearing as Murari Gupta. Similarly, Guhak Raj from the pastimes of Sri Ram, he appears as Sadananda Bhattacharya. And he appeared well before the appearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So now, when Nimai appeared in the district of Nadia, in the house of Jagannath Mishra and Sachi Mata, everyone from the neighboring villages, they all came with gifts and sweets to see the appearance of Nimai Pandit. So when they saw Nimai, everyone was so enamored by the beauty. And likewise, Sadananda Bhattacharya, who is not different from Guhak Raj, he also saw Nimai. And he was thinking to himself, he is as beautiful and as effulgent and as tejasvi as my Prabhu Sri Ram. My Prabhu Sri Ram is also very effulgent. And this boy, he seems not different from Sri Ram. He's that effulgent. So that day, he went home and he was meditating on the form of Sri Ram. He was chanting Ram, 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 Ram. He was chanting the glories of Prabhu Sri Ram. Raghupati Raghav Raja Ram Patita Pavana Sita Ram. Raghupati Raghav Raja Ram Patita Pavana Sita Ram. In this way, Sadananda Bhattacharya was a Ram Bhakta, was chanting the glories of Ram. And in his meditation, when he was chanting the names of Ram, he was thinking about Ram. But in his meditation, the Ram he was thinking about, he switched and took the form of Nimai Pandit. And immediately Nimai Pandit switched and took the form of Ram. And immediately Ram switched and took the form of Nimai Pandit. So Sadananda Bhattacharya, he opened his eyes and he thought to himself, wait a minute. Is Nimai not different from Sri Ram? Is he the same person? Or am I just dreaming? Is Nimai, who has appeared here in Nadia, is he the same Ram? And that night, dear devotees, when he went to sleep, in his dream, Sri Ram appeared and Sri Ram switched and became Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And again, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu switched and he became Sri Ram. And Sri Ram told Guhak Raj, who was Sadananda Bhattacharya, that have no doubt that I have appeared as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So the bhakti that you show unto me, show the same bhakti unto the lotus feet of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So in this way, we find that the Supreme Lord, based on our desire, based on our bhav, he shows the form that we are looking out for. Janki rahi bhavana jaisi, Prabhu murat tin dekhi desi. Goswami Ji in Ramcharitmanas, he says, Jaki rahi bhavana jaisi, based on our bhavana, Prabhu muhurat tin dekhi desi. This similarly, based on the desires, based on the bhav that we have in our heart, the Supreme Lord shows that form. When it came to Murari Gupta, during Mahaprakash Leela, the Supreme Lord showed the form of Sri Ram. And likewise here, for Sadananda Bhattacharya, who was a Ram Bhakta, the Supreme Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu transformed and showed the form of Prabhu Sri Ram. We find the same parallels even in Rai Ramananda Samvad. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is discussing with Ramananda Rai, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu switches forms. Ramananda Rai says, Paila dekhila tumar sannyasi swaroop, एबे मोई देखे श्यामा गोपरू. ओ Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, पहले देखिला तुम्हार सन्यासी स्वरूप. First I saw you as sannyasi, but now I am seeing you as Shama Goparu. Now I am seeing you as Tribhanga Lalit Shyam Sundar, who is holding a flute. So which form is it? Are you a sannyasi or are you Shyam Sundar Shri Krishna? So there we find that the Supreme Lord is switching forms constantly. And here also in the pastime of Sadananda Bhattacharya, who is not different from Guhak Raj, we find that the Supreme Lord, as Sri Nimai Pandit Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, transformed and became Sri Ram, and he again transformed and became Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to give this faith and conviction to all the people of humanity that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is not different from Krishna. He is not different from Sri Ram. He is the same personality, and we should have akhanda faith in the worship of Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu. Just by worshipping Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, everyone is satisfied. Just like we say, just by worshipping Krishna, all the demigods are satisfied. Similarly, by worshipping Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all the Vishnu Murtis are also satisfied. Even Krishna gets satisfied if someone worships Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So if we are worshipping Gauranga Mahaprabhu, we are satisfying everyone, the demigods and including the Vishnu Murtis. So in this way, we find that the pastimes of Prabhu Sri Ram are extremely sweet when it comes from Valmiki, and it also comes from Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Navadvip Dham Mahatmya. And also in the Bhagavatam, we find in the 9th canto, very briefly, Shukadev Goswami speaks about Prabhu Sri Ram. Having said this, I stop here, and I hope and pray that this coming Ram Navami brings in a lot of auspiciousness in our lives, and may we make leaps and bounds of spiritual progress, and may we attain the mercy of Prabhu Sri Ram that can help us advance on this path of Krishna Bhakti that we are all looking out for. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Shri Maryada Purushottam Ramchandra Bhagavan ki jai. Ram Navami Maha Utsav ki jai. Patita Pavan Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Samasta Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. And Samasta Ram Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.